I want to tell you something before I start. I almost didn't share this story. Not because I'm ashamed of what happened to me, but because for the longest time, I couldn't say it out loud without feeling like the walls were closing in. But I've learned something about silence. Silence protects the wrong people. So here I am. My name is Lorraine. I'm 63 years old, and until 14 months ago, I was cleaning office buildings 5 nights a week, on my knees, with industrial-grade soap eating through the skin on my hands. Not because I was lazy. Not because I'd made bad choices. But because I genuinely believed that was the life I deserved. That God had given me a good son and taken everything else. And that was just the balance I had to live with. My son's name is Nathan. He's 37 years old and owns a real estate development firm in Charlotte, North Carolina that employs close to 300 people. He built it himself. From a single property he flipped at 24 with money he'd saved working double shifts at a hardware store. I watched him do it. I was proud every single day. After his father passed, that was 4 years ago now, pancreatic cancer, very fast, Nathan threw himself into work the way some men throw themselves into drinking. It was his grief. I understood it. I didn't push. Our calls got shorter. The visits got further apart. But I told myself, he's building something. He's okay. We're okay. He married Cassandra 18 months after his father died. She was beautiful in the way that makes you feel slightly underdressed just standing next to her. Dark auburn hair, always perfect. A smile that could light up a room and, I would eventually learn, hide almost anything. I tried to love her. I really did. She called me Mom from the very first family dinner. She brought me flowers every time they visited. She asked about my health, my knee pain, my doctor's appointments, in that warm, solicitous way that I mistook for genuine concern. Looking back now, she was gathering information. The December after they got married, Nathan called me on a Sunday evening, voice warm and excited. Mom, I want to start helping you out more. Cass and I talked about it, and we think it's time. You shouldn't be working that hard at your age. I told him I was fine. He said I always said that. He was right. He told me he was going to set up a monthly transfer, $1,800. First of every month, to help cover my expenses. Medication, groceries, car maintenance, whatever I needed. And, he said, voice dropping like he was about to say something big, he'd also been looking at a property. A small lake house, about 40 miles from Charlotte. He wanted to give it to me. Said I'd always loved the water. Ever since we used to vacation at the coast when he was little. Said it would be good for my heart. I cried on the phone. I actually cried. And then I waited. The first month came and went. No transfer. I figured there was a delay. Banks were slow sometimes. I didn't want to seem ungrateful by asking. Second month. Nothing. I mentioned it gently, apologetically, the way you do when you don't want to seem like you're counting on money you haven't received. Nathan sounded surprised, said he'd look into it, and called back 2 days later to say his assistant confirmed everything had gone through fine. And I thought, maybe I was confused. Maybe I'd miscounted. Maybe I needed to check my account more carefully. I never got a single dollar. Not one. But I didn't know that yet. Because I trusted my son, and my son trusted his wife. For 2 years, I rationed my blood pressure pills. I skipped my annual eye exam because the copay felt too high. I ate peanut butter toast for dinner more nights than I'm comfortable admitting. And I told myself it was temporary. That things would ease up. That I just needed to hold on a little longer. I wore the same winter coat for 3 seasons. The zipper broke in January and I safety pinned it shut for 6 weeks before I could justify buying a replacement. Meanwhile, Cassandra's family, her parents, her younger sister, a brother-in-law, were living 40 miles away in a lake house with my name on the deed. Using money wired every month in my name. Into an account I'd never opened. At a bank I'd never walked into. Spending $1,800 of my son's love for me every single month. Planting gardens. Painting rooms. Hosting barbecues. I didn't find out until Christmas. Nathan came alone that year. Cassandra had stayed home with a migraine. Or so she said. He brought a small gift and a ham from the good butcher downtown. And we sat at my kitchen table the way we hadn't in years. Just the two of us. Quiet and easy. Somewhere between the sweet potato casserole and the pecan pie. He leaned back in his chair and smiled at me with that same expression he'd had as a little boy when he was proud of himself. So, Mom, be honest with me. Is the lake house everything you hoped for? I set down my fork very slowly. What lake house, Nathan? His smile faded. Not all at once. Slowly, like a candle going out. The one on Lake Hargrove. I transferred the deed to you 23 months ago. Mom, we talked about this. Honey, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never received any paperwork. I've never seen any deed. He stared at me. And in the silence that followed, I watched something shift behind his eyes. Not doubt, not confusion. Recognition. The kind that comes right before everything falls apart. He pulled out his phone. Called his assistant, a young woman named Priya who'd worked for him for 3 years. Put her on speaker without asking. Priya, I need you to pull up everything related to the Lake Hargrove property. The deed transfer and the monthly payment records. She found them within minutes. The deed had been transferred in my name on November 20th. Nearly 2 years ago. Signed, notarized, mailed to an address on Sycamore Lane. Apartment 14B. I have never lived on Sycamore Lane. And the payments? Nathan asked. All processed on the 1st of every month. Sir, $1,800 to an account under your mother's name. Routing number ending in. She read it aloud. Nathan looked at me. I shook my head slowly. That was not my bank. That was not my account. Priya, he said, very carefully. Who gave you that account information? A pause. Your wife, sir, Mrs. Cassandra Cole. She called me in January. Said your mother had changed banks and wanted everything updated. She had all the correct information. Your mother's full name, date of birth, social security number. I had no reason to question it. The kitchen felt very quiet. Nathan hung up the phone. He didn't say anything for a long time. I didn't say anything either. Because there aren't really words for the moment you realize your child's spouse has been stealing from both of you simultaneously, and that the woman with the perfect smile and the welcome flowers had been studying your life like a blueprint she planned to build on. He called his lawyer that night. A man named Gerald Marsh who'd handled Nathan's business contracts for years. Gerald answered on the 3rd ring. Heard 5 minutes of explanation. And told us not to touch anything. Not to confront Cassandra. And to be at his office at 9 the next morning. I didn't sleep. I sat in my kitchen in the dark. Drinking chamomile tea that went cold. Turning it all over in my mind. The apologetic way I'd asked about the transfers and then backed down when Nathan said they'd gone through. The way Cassandra had always changed the subject when I mentioned money troubles. Pivoting to something lighter, something easy. The way she'd asked once, very casually, which bank I used, and I'd told her. I'd handed her the key and never noticed the door was open. Gerald's investigation took 3 weeks. What it uncovered was worse than I'd imagined. Cassandra hadn't just redirected Nathan's payments. She'd opened 3 accounts in my name at 3 separate banks using my personal information. She'd applied for 2 credit cards under my name, run them close to their limits, and was making minimum payments with Nathan's money to keep them active. She'd taken out a personal loan in my name for $11,000. And she had filed amended tax returns claiming I'd received income I'd never seen, which meant the IRS had opened an inquiry into my finances for unreported earnings. I was being investigated for tax evasion. Because Cassandra had reported money she'd stolen from me as income I'd hidden. The total? Gerald set the folder on the desk between us and folded his hands. Mrs. Lorraine, including the monthly payments, the credit activity, the loan proceeds, and the property value, we're looking at approximately $91,000. I heard Nathan make a sound beside me that wasn't quite a word. I'd been eating peanut butter toast. Her parents had been hosting dinner parties on the lake. Nathan wanted to confront her immediately. I understood the impulse, but Gerald advised against it. He wanted to know the full scope before she had any chance to move assets or destroy documentation. So we waited 4 more days. And those days were some of the strangest of my life. Cassandra called me twice during that period. Once to ask if I'd enjoyed the Christmas ham. Once to suggest we get lunch in the new year. Just us. Some mother-daughter bonding time. I answered both calls. I said yes to lunch. I kept my voice warm and light and gave nothing away. Working the night shift will teach you things about keeping a neutral face. On a Wednesday morning in early January, Nathan drove to their house while Cassandra was home. He'd asked Gerald to accompany him. I waited at Nathan's office with a cup of coffee I couldn't drink. He told me later she'd laughed at first. Said it was a misunderstanding. Said the bank must have made an error. Said Priya had probably misheard her name. Then Gerald laid out the documentation. Every account. Every statement. The forged signature on the deed, which a handwriting expert had already confirmed was not mine. The IRS notices sent to the Sycamore Lane address she'd used as a drop. She stopped laughing. What she said next. Nathan repeated it to me word for word that evening. Sitting at my kitchen table again, his voice hollow, was that my son had never really understood what it cost to run their life the way she'd built it. That she'd come from nothing. That her parents deserved better. That the money was just sitting there being transferred to an old woman who didn't even know what to do with it. An old woman. That's what I was to her. An old woman who didn't know what to do with it. I looked at my son's face when he said those words and I saw something I'd never seen there before. Not just anger. Not just grief. Shame. The shame of having loved someone who'd viewed his mother as an obstacle. Or worse, a resource. The police were called the following morning. Cassandra was arrested on charges of identity theft, bank fraud, wire fraud, and filing false tax documents. The charges related to my stolen information were serious enough that the district attorney took them personally. Her family at the lakehouse, her parents and her sister's family, were notified that the property did not belong to Cassandra. Had never belonged to Cassandra, and that they would need to vacate within 30 days. Her mother called me. I didn't expect that. She called me from a number I didn't recognize. And when I answered, she just started crying. Said she hadn't known. Said she'd believed everything Cassandra told her. That Nathan had wanted to help. That it was a gift freely given. She begged me to believe her. And here's the thing. I did believe her. Because I knew better than most what it felt like to trust the wrong person completely. The civil case moved faster than the criminal one. Gerald filed for full asset recovery. And because Nathan had meticulous financial records, every transfer, every confirmation, every email, the court's job wasn't complicated. The deed reverted to my name within 60 days. The fraudulent accounts were frozen and the funds returned. The IRS investigation was dropped once the forensic accountants provided documentation of what had actually happened. Cassandra pleaded guilty. She received 22 months. The judge, a woman about my age with reading glasses on a beaded chain, looked at her across the courtroom and said something I've thought about many times since. You didn't just steal money. You stole someone's dignity. You stole the peace of mind a mother should have had in her later years. And you did it deliberately, systematically, and without remorse until you were caught. I didn't cry in that courtroom. I'd done my crying alone. In the months before, when the full weight of it had finally landed, when I'd let myself sit with how small I'd felt, rationing pills and safety pinning my coat while she planted perennials by the water in my house. By the time the sentence was read, I felt something quieter. Not triumph. Just the particular relief that comes when truth stops being your private burden and becomes the public record. I moved into the lakehouse in March. The first morning, I made coffee and carried it out to the back porch and stood there watching the light come up over the water. The trees were just beginning to bud. There was a pair of herons that lived in the cove near the dock. It didn't feel like mine yet. It felt like a place I was borrowing from a luckier version of myself. But I kept showing up to it every morning. I planted tomatoes in the south-facing bed. I hung my mother's quilt on the wall in the guest room. I put photos of Nathan's father on the mantel, where he could look out at the lake he never got to see. And slowly, the way all homes do when you live in them honestly, it became mine. Nathan calls every morning now, not to check on me. Exactly, or not only that. He calls because we've both gotten into the habit of starting the day in each other's voices. 15 minutes about nothing in particular. The herons. His work. What I'm reading. Something funny he heard. It's the most ordinary thing in the world. And it is everything. He's been seeing someone. A woman named Diane who does environmental consulting and grows her own vegetables and apparently told Nathan on their second date that she has a strict personal policy against lying. Even about small things, because small lies are just big lies that haven't finished growing yet. I asked him to bring her to meet me. He said he would, that he wasn't rushing it, that he was learning to take his time. I told him that sounded exactly right. Here's what I want you to know. If you've stayed with me this long. Cassandra stole 2 years from me. She stole my security and my comfort and the peace of mind that a mother is supposed to have when she knows her child is taking care of her. She stole my identity in the most literal sense, used my name, my number, my signature, and spent it on her family's comfort while I went without. But she didn't get to keep it. And she couldn't steal what came after. The morning calls. The herons in the cove. The tomatoes coming in from the garden. A son who finally, truly sees me, not as a responsibility to manage from a distance, but as a person whose life is worth showing up for. The house is mine now. And so is the rest of it. I'd love to know, have you ever trusted someone completely, only to find out they'd been hiding something enormous? Tell me in the comments. And let me know what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story has traveled. Before you go, I've put 2 more stories on the end screen that the channel community has called their favorites. I think at least one of them will surprise you. Thank you for being here until the very end. It means more than you know.